don't think I'm ever going to be making a half-scale bird for you, but you know, here's a half-scale bird feeder for you. So this is based off of one that I have in my backyard, which is about 24 inches tall and holds the largest seed, or the largest seed that I have purchased, which is safflower seed. Okay, then I also made a hook that's a lot like what I have in the backyard if you wish to put it on a hook. Okay, so here are your supplies, and you need quite a few of them. You're going to need that tubing that I have in the description, and it really needs to be the exact tubing that I have in the description for this to work well. Tacky glue, some super glue, a little bit of sand for the seed. You're going to need about 4 sewing pins or maybe safety pins. You're going to need something for the bottom, which is supposed to be like a seed catcher, 8 millimeters. Something for the top. This one is from a collection of jewelry making beads. It's a cap bead, and that's what I use to make that squirrel-deterrent top. Okay, so then I've got a bunch of other little things. You'll need your tweezers. You'll need something to mark that will come off. Okay, and it's ink is really what you're going to need. Something to measure with. Then you come over here, and here are your options for hanging it. So this wire is to make the hanger itself, the silver one. In other words, this one. And this could be used, this is another cap bead that could be used to glue to the ceiling over your balcony and hang the feeder that way. If you prefer to have the little deck hanger, then some the thickest gauge wire you can find, which I'm going to try to find some in the description and put it in the description rather. Green paint if needed, something to bend the wire, something that is really in good condition to cut those sewing pins, because you need something hefty, not like what I've done, which is ruin these. Okay, so let me go ahead and get this stuff out of the way. So here's the thing about that tubing. It comes in a roll. And when it comes in a roll, it does not glue well because it'll have a curve in it. So in order to deal with this, whether you made the pendant lamps, if you need it to be really straight for the stained glass one or the blown glass one that I made, or the one that looks like blown glass, then you need to boil this. So I used this bamboo skewer. It's not quite big enough to hold this completely straight. If you can find something that your plastic can be threaded on that's not too small or too big, that's going to help you out. This worked just fine. All right, so cut, you know, a small enough piece for however wide your pan is, and just put to boil enough water that this can, it'll sort of float on the top depending upon what, if the stick or whatever is weighing it down. About 5 minutes will do it. Leave it to where it can dry and cool off on whatever your stabilizer is, whether it's a skewer or not. Now, when that first happens, it's going to look cloudy, but the cloudiness clears up and it goes back to this nice, clear look. So it's just like the original. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the seed tube. So when I go to cut my seed tube, I want to do, it's actually 2 centimeters, would get us at approximately the real life measurement. Now, something that I've talked about before with the tube, it's very difficult to cut it nice and even on the end. So I'm going to leave that up to you for how you want to cut it. Sometimes an X-Acto works the best, and you just press down and you can see how well you did. And for this particular project, I can trim a little off and make adjustments without it making my project all messed up, like with the pendant light that look like blown glass. So I can make adjustments a little bit here and there. Get that about as straight across as I can is what I'm going to do. Now about 2 centimeters, so let's come down here. Do the same thing. Try to get a nice cut. Oh, that one looks, oh, it's pretty darn good. A little bit of adjustment right there, and I think that's not bad. Of course, every time I twist it, I see something else, so it's helpful to do the best you can. Okay, that's that. I think that will do the job. So what I'd like to do now is go ahead and stick the seed catcher on. And since I was trying to get this even, I'm going to put it on the button with the lip up, because it's a pretend seed catcher, and kind of look and see. All right, it's going to hit there pretty well. Now you can use the super glue to do this if you do that carefully. Super glue can be a problem for plastics and acrylics. So as long as I'm not putting a whole bunch of this and not being able to be careful for some reason, then I'll be all right. All right, that's pretty good. Just a little tiny bit that's going to show. Okay, I'm going to let that set. Okay, that's dry. So time to measure for the perches. So I am going to measure 6 millimeters from the bottom of the tube with some kind of pen that I can remove the mark, rub that off or whatever. This takes a little finesse. Let's see. Okay, I actually got a tiny mark there. Let's double check that. Well, it's about 5. Well, it's almost 6. If I use the top of it, it's 6. So I can turn that a little bit. And then I want to go 7 millimeters from the top. Reason these are different is the bead. Perfect. This bead, this squirrel-deterrent bead, if you will, it comes down a little. So I want the perches to be more or less equal distance. Did I measure something wrong? Yeah. I measured this wrong. Needs to be 7 millimeters from the top. I did something funky. That looks about right. And this comes down. Because this one, I have to go from the top. Okay, that's my marker for where I'm going to take this, and I'm going to press this all the way through. And here's a challenge. And you just have to do the best you can. I'm going to press this in, push this on in, the first layer. Now, I'm going to look at the side, and I'm going to try very hard, looking at this angle as well, to go straight across to the other side. It's got to go. Straight across as I can get. Press this all the way through. Let's see how well I did. It's crooked. See, it doesn't, it goes. So what I'm going to need to do is press this in a little more, push that in a little more. Take this end and this end and bend so that if I put my finger over that spot, it now looks like it goes straight across. Because I can't do another hole, it'll show. It will close up to a certain extent. But best case scenario, you can do better than I did. So now I did across this way and may need more adjusting. So now I'm going to turn this, and I'm going to take another pin, okay? And this time I'm going the other direction. See if this goes, right? If that's horizontal, then I'm going to go vertical. And try to do the same thing, only better. So I'm looking at this side and see what I can do. Oh, that's definitely better. And I can kind of wiggle this around a little. It's pretty good. If we look down in there, it's not bad. Okay, the sand that we put in has to cover the perches that go through there. I'm going to remove this while I'm thinking of it. I'm removing my marks where my perches were just before I forget. So now it's sand time. Don't clip these yet. It's sand time. And I will probably get sand everywhere, just to let you know. I can never seem to do this very well. So we're just gonna understand that sand is everywhere. But I want to monitor by holding on. By the way, these give me little handles. I don't want to just go dumping this in and thinking that I'm finished. I want to do it a little at a time. And then I can take my tweezers or something, and I want to pack this down, pack it down, because it will settle. And what you don't want, you see, I'm covering up that inside perch, and you want that to stay covered. And because of course it's not actually supposed to be there. So that's good. I just keep going here, little by little, getting the sand as many places other than the inside as possible. That seems to be my skill. Tamping it down. Really keep examining the side, all the sides, making sure there's not a blank, a hole type of thing somewhere. Okay. Let's keep on going. All right, so now looks like I could still tamp this down a little bit more. There we go. More. I want it nice and even on the top. Press down with my finger. Nice and even on the top. Okay. I think that's good. Okay. Oops. See, I have to be careful. I don't want to lose too much of that, because what I do in a minute generally causes me to lose some of it. Okay, so my top. Put this to the side. So before I glue on my top, I need to get this part ready. I need to get it attached, because it's going to be a lot easier to make this hook the way I show you than after the fact, than after it's glued on. Wow, that is very crooked. Not fond of that. This is it's just, this is going to show. Let me see if I can pull that really tight. That might be the best I can do. Okay, much better. I'm much happier with that. Of course, I need to give it a trim. Okay, I have no idea how long you really want to make this ultimately, but you are going to need extra here. If I show you mine, see, it's quite short, but I need to get this inside here in a nice way. And one of the ways that I can do that to help myself when I go to glue this in is I can make this end a little bit hooked and thread this through, and then make it more like a loop, kind of like that, in such a way that it won't go all the way through. I don't think it will. Okay, I know it's not on there straight just yet. Then what I want to do is I want to take a generous amount of tacky glue and put that in there. when I do that, I probably have to remove some from the top. I want to straighten my wire. Ah, don't do that. I'm trying to get that to hang straight. Still needs some definite adjustments here. Okay, that's almost there. Almost. So I can probably put it this way. And get that to dry nicely. Tacky glue is forgiving enough that I can probably manipulate this later. But I do want that all nice and glued. So while I'm doing that, I don't have a top on that yet, and I want to clip these. It's going to give me a hassle. It just is. Well, okay. Maybe this is in need of adjustment. It's just not going to behave today. That's weird. It worked fine before. I think what I'm going to do is just not worry about that right now. Let that be. That's got to dry. So since I don't have anything on the top of this, because I already talked about I'm going to get the sand everywhere, I'm going to go ahead and grab a little bit of blue tape, because this isn't drying the way I want it to, but I want to move on. So a little bit of blue tape will do the trick. See, some of the sand is coming out anyway, so ideally this would glue on really nicely and efficiently, but it's just not going to. So to move on, I want to deal with my perches. So my perches should not be probably any longer than about 3 millimeters. So I'm going to go ahead and cut off one side. cut it off closer than that. I'm going to go ahead and pull this through. Pull it back through. And see if I can't get this to be around 3 millimeters. Still needs a little bit. Ah, okay. So, of course, I need to do that over here. And I can just judge by what I did on the other side. It's not precisely 3 millimeters. Well, that's okay. I can eyeball that, trim off more if I want to, or leave it and just center it. I'm just going to take that end off a little bit. Okay. Okay, same. Going to do the same thing going this way. Just cut off that one end. I like to do the pointy side first, just because, why not? I'm getting glue everywhere over here, off camera. Tacky glue. All right. Pull it through a little more. No, don't do too much. All right, it's about 3. Rinse and repeat on this side. Let's see. Just a little longer than it needs to be, but I don't think by very much. Oh, it's 4. Just want to look around, see if it shows. Just get them centered. That's a big deal. All right. So my next step, first I'm going to actually check on this, see how it's drying. Now, it's slowly but surely drying. Get all this off my hands. How can you see? Okay. All right, I'm pretty happy with that. The next thing that I need to do is make the holes for the seed to come out. Boy, I've made a mess over here. All that. I've got to get that off of my hand. Sorry. It's a mess over here. Tacky glue. Needed to go everywhere, apparently. Okay. So the little holes, how am I going to do those? Well, this is a dangerous part. You don't have to do it just exactly the way I'm doing it. But what I want to do is I want to pierce above the perches to make that hole. And just eyeball it. Okay, I can pierce that, but the thing about this stuff is it heals itself to a certain extent. The tubing. So what I can do is I can take a lighter, and this is you really have to hold this back. Maybe put on some gloves or something. I hesitate to say that this is a good idea for everyone. Depends on how responsible you can be with fire. I'm heating this up, and I'm going back to that hole, and now that the pin is warmer, it should stay open. I can make it slightly larger. if I want. And it will hopefully stay. Magnifying glass here for a second. It's a little off. Okay, so I'm going to do that for each one. Yeah, just use my finger. Normally the top would be on here and I wouldn't have this hassle, but we know that didn't work out that way. So make my mark there, and then if I'm going to heat it up, it's at this point where I would but that's up to you. I'm going to go ahead and use a little bit of heat and do all of these this way. I'm running out of stuff. Very carefully here. Hopefully I have these centered over the perch. I'm a little skeptical that I did. Okay, you can leave it that way, or you can, because it's very difficult to see, you can actually take a little bit of black acrylic paint, and I'm just going to grab one of my little pens, and I'm not going to use the pen for this. I'm going to use the tip of my sewing pen, and I'm going to go back there where I made that, and I'm just going to kind of insert a little bit of black into those holes. And if I do both of those, then it looks somewhat like a hole that goes all the way through. And these do not need to be very dark. Like, you don't have to keep adding paint and adding paint. You see, I'm not using big bubbles of paint. It's not necessary. Just inserting it in the holes. Doing a little like that. I can even get less. I could stand to lose some of that paint. And this adds depth to the little holes. That one's not the way I really like it to be. But the others, and see, if you were to look at this from the side, difficult to tell if I put my hand here, it does look as if that hole goes in and through the wall just as it would if the bird feeder were real. And I can enlarge the holes to make it even more convincing and so forth. So meanwhile, this thing is just refusing to glue, but that's okay. I've lost sand because of these shenanigans. Gotta see if I can get that back up to the top and tamp it down. So if this were being much more cooperative, I'm gonna add some more glue just to make sure. I want to try to get just, see, just enough glue under the edge to adhere that bead. So I want to check around, see if it's even, if it's level. Pressing it down. And maybe the wire will dry nicer now. Perhaps. I'm not going to hold my breath. But maybe. Yeah, maybe. Something I could do is clip this up somewhere. If you have a clip that you could hang it like that, and then it would dry really nicely. Normally this dries just fine. And you can scrape off a little of that glue and so forth. So what I would then do if this were cooperating is I would determine how long I need for this to hang the height I want. And probably, if we look at mine, I think I know what I did. Yeah, I put it about like so. So I want to go ahead and twist this. Yeah. Into a little hanger. Just a little hook. And trim off the end. I obviously waited longer to let this dry before. There's something. Another problem is if I had too much sand around the lip, it's not going to adhere as well. Which I do have some sand. So when that dries, and once you make adjustments to your hook Like that hook could use some adjustments. You have the bird feeder. Okay, so you can tell here, this dried much nicer. I adjusted my hook so it was nice. You can, on mine, you may have seen, what you can do is you could take a toothpick with a little bit of tacky glue and you can sort of coat the perch slightly, because most perches are going to have some sort of plastic covering over them. And so when that dries, it looks even more realistic. So, okay, so there's my sample. Much better up here, see. So now I decide, well, how would I like to display or hang it? Well, display it. So if I have the hook and I want to glue this to the ceiling, then I just run my hook up through here and adjust my hook down and flatten it if needed. What I mean by that is flatten to go inside of my bead. So it might look like that, right? And then I'm going to glue the bird feeder to the bead, okay? Then the bead to the ceiling. So I would let this bead dry with the hook in it before trying to put this on the ceiling. Don't try to do both. It just, the weight of this thing is just too much. It will fall. So what if I would like to put it on a little deck hook? Well, I can do that as well. And that's not difficult to make it really like accurate. So basically mine, you know, if I were to adhere this to a balcony, right, what's in between my fingers, it comes out, the hook comes out at an angle and then just swoops down like that. So what I would do is I would go ahead and straighten this to the best of my ability. So I would go ahead and just start down here and bend this over my finger a little bit. It doesn't have to be bent just the same length as mine. I'll go ahead and do that. If you want it to be exactly the same, so I can do that. Okay. Straighten it out some more. And bring it at a little bit of an angle. See, like so. So about however far out you want this to be, you might want to extend it a little bit more. This wire was, what was this before I started bending it? How about if I tell you that? This wire was about, looks like about 7 centimeters-ish, 6.5 centimeters. But I have extra. And now I'm unhappy with how this is crooked. So I'm going to try my little hack. I didn't come up with this. I saw a video online where a lady was talking about this for some other kind of project. And see, it's nice, it really is, but it does affect the paint. But that's just so beautiful. Okay, so back to what I was doing. Put it at an angle. So I started to bend right around here. And I'm going to bend down. And I'm going to bend in a little. Then I'm going to, a little more, because when I go to bend out, I need something to hold on to. And I'm just going to bend. Like that. Adjusting as I want. Like so. And then just go ahead and trim off a little bit. Generally speaking, it goes, I'm cutting sort of in line with this. It holds it. Now this is black wire. So I just went ahead and I just took, this color is sap green. I don't know if that's a real color or not. You know, a standard color, I mean. This is about the same color though as what I have in the backyard. And I just went ahead, used the acrylic, covered this up. Couple of layers, coats. That's all it took. Let it dry in between nicely if you can't get it to coat the first time. But anyway, when that dried, it became this color, which is pretty darn close to what most of these are made out of. A lot of these are either black or they're this green. So you have what you need there to decide how you want to hang your little bird feeder. And once that all dries and everything, you're good to go. So I hope you enjoyed this, and please subscribe to my channel. Take care.